We are now in Chapter 8, Understanding the Role of the Financial Markets and Institutions. Before we gonna tackle our discussion for today, let me introduce myself to you first. I am Evelyn, the auditor, a third-year accountancy student, and I'm your first reporter for today. What are the learning objectives in this lesson? There are 10 objectives that students should be able to. First, students should be able to define financial markets. Second, students should be able to identify the participants in the financial markets. Third, students should be able to appreciate the importance of financial markets as providers of funds to business establishment. Fourth, students should be able to enumerate and distinguish the types of markets. Fifth, students should be able to familiar with the categories of financial institutions. Sixth, students should be able to understand the role of the stock market. Seventh, students should be able to know the kinds of stock market. Eighth, students should be able to explain the reasons for transactions in stock. Ninth, students should be able to discuss the rule and operation of a stock exchange. And last but not the least, students should be able to know how securities are listed on the stock exchange. Let's proceed to the next slides. Understanding the role of the financial markets and institution. Introduction. One may wonder how a financial manager knows whether he or she is maximizing shareholder value, and ethical or unethical behavior may affect the value of the company. This information is provided daily to financial managers through price changes determined in the financial markets. But what are the financial markets? Financial markets are the meeting place for people, corporations, and institutions that either need money or have money to lend or invest. In a broad context, the financial markets exist as a vast global network of individuals and financial institutions that may be lenders, borrowers, or owners of public companies worldwide. Participants in the financial markets also include national, state, and local governments that are primarily borrowers of funds for highways, education, welfare, and other public activities. Their markets are referred to public financial markets. The large corporations raise funds in the corporate financial markets. Corporations rely on the financial markets to provide funds for short-term operations and for new plant and equipment. A firm may go to the markets and raise financial capital by either borrowing money through a debt offering of corporate bonds or short-term notes, or by selling ownership in the company through an issue of common stock. When a corporation uses the financial markets to raise new funds, the sale of securities is said to be made in the primary market by way of a new issue. After the securities are sold to the public, either institutions and individuals, they are traded in the secondary market between investors. It is in the secondary market that prices are continually changing as investors buy and sell securities based on their expectations of a corporation's prospects. It is also in the secondary market that financial managers are given feedback about their firm's performance. Those companies that perform well and are rewarded by the market with high-priced securities have an easier time raising new funds in the money and capital markets than their competitors. They are also able to raise funds at a lower cost. Structure and function of the financial markets. There are different financial markets served in different types of customers or different parts of the country. When we say financial markets, it also vary depending on the maturity of the securities being traded and the types of assets used to back the securities. Here are the following types of markets. There are 5 types of markets. First, the physical asset markets versus financial asset markets. Physical asset markets is also called tangible or real asset markets. These are for products such as wet, autos, real estate, computers, and machinery. While financial asset markets, on the other hand, deal with stocks, bonds, notes, and mortgages. Financial markets also deal with derivative securities, whose values are derived from changes in the prices of other assets. For example, a share of Meralco stock is a pure financial asset, while an option to buy Meralco shares is a derivative security, whose value depends on the price of stock. Bonds backed by subprime mortgages are another type of derivative, as the values of these bonds are derived from the values of the underlying mortgages. Second, the spot markets versus future markets. When you say spot markets, these are markets in which assets are bought or sold for on-the-spot delivery. Future markets are markets in which participants agree today to buy or sell an asset as assets are bought or sold for on-the-spot delivery. Future markets are markets in which participants agree today to buy or sell an asset at some future date. The third types of markets is money markets versus capital markets. Money markets are financial markets in which funds are borrowed or loaned for a short period, less than 1 year. While capital markets are financial markets for stocks and for intermediate or long-term debt, which is 1 year or longer. The fourth one is primary markets versus secondary markets. Primary markets are the markets in which corporations raise capital by issuing new securities, while secondary markets are the markets in which securities and other financial markets are traded among investors after they have been issued by corporations. And lastly, private markets versus public markets. Private markets are markets in which transactions are worked out directly between two parties. Public markets are markets in which standardized contracts are traded on organized exchange. Let's proceed to the next slide. Financial institutions. When you say financial institution, it is a direct funds transfers that are common among individuals and small businesses and in economies where financial markets and institutions are less developed. but large businesses in developed economies generally find it more efficient to enlist the services of a financial institution when it comes time to raise capital. The, cat- the categories of financial institutions are as follows. First, investment banks. Investment banks is an organization that underwrites and distributes new investment securities and helps businesses obtain financing. Second, commercial banks. It is the traditional department store of finance that serving a variety of savers and borrowers. Third, financial services corporations. It is a firm that offers a wide range of financial services, including investment banking, brokerage operations, insurance, and commercial banking. Fourth, fourth credit unions. Credit unions. Cooperative associations whose members are supposed to have a common bond, just as being employees of the same firm. Credit unions are often the cheapest source of funds available to individual borrowers. Fifth, pension funds. It is a retirement plans funded by corporations or government agencies for their workers and administered primarily by the trust departments of commercial banks or by life insurance companies. 6. Life insurance companies. It is a savings in the form of annual premiums. Invest these funds in stocks, bonds, real estate, and mortgages, and make payments to the beneficiaries of the insured parties. 7. Mutual funds. This is an organization that pool investor funds to purchase financial instruments and thus reduce risk through diversification. Money market funds are mutual funds that invest in short-term, low-risk securities and allow investors to write checks against their accounts. 8. Exchange Trade Funds or non-ETF. It is similar to regular mutual funds and are often operated by mutual fund companies. ETF buy a portfolio of stocks of a certain type and then sell their own shares to the public. 9th, hedge funds. It is similar to mutual funds also because they accept money and use the funds to buy various securities, but there are some important differences. 10th, last but not the least, private equity companies. It is an organization that operate much like hedge funds, but rather than purchasing some of the stock of the firm, private equity players buy and then manage entire firms. That's all my report for today. I hope you understand and thank you.
A pleasant morning to everyone, especially to our instructor, Mrs. Joanne Auxilio. Good morning, ma'am. I am the next reporter. I'm Arame N. Kotanda, and my topic was about business finance. Business finance is concerned with the provision of funds for investment in business enterprise. Whatever is invested in this must be provided by an investor, and this means that the investor must forego consumption saved to provide the funds. So, when we say business finance, it means it is the raising and managing of funds by business organizations. Mo ni siya ang tagapamahala, kung sa Tagalog pa tagapamahala sa sa mga pundo o kredito na gitrabahoan sa usa ka negosyo. Ang trabaho na gigampanan ani is mao ang paghawid sa kwarta, sa mga cashiership o disbursement o pag-budget. If the demand for investment funds is greater than the funds offered for investment by savers, then the rate of interest will rise until people in the economy are induced to forgo consumption and make their savings available for investment. The new issues of securities are made available in the market. The securities that are already outstanding and owned by the investors are usually bought and sold to the secondary market, which is popularly known as stock. What do you mean by stock? Stock, it is an securities that represent an ownership share in a company. In a stock market, purchases and sales of securities, whether of government or semi-government bodies or other public bodies, and also shares and debentures issued by joint stock companies are affected. By the way, what is stock market? Stock market means it allows the companies to raise money by offering stock shares and corporate bonds. Then the securities of government are traded in the stock market as a separate component called gilt edge market. What is a gilt edge market, guys? Gilt edge market, it is refers to the market for government and semi-government. Government securities are traded outside the trading wing in the form of over-the-counter sales or purchases. Another component of stock market deals with trading in shares and debentures of limited companies. In this market, a stock or bond issue has already been sold to the public and it is traded between current and potential owners. The proceeds from sale in the stock market do not go to the issuing organization but to the current owner of the security. Once new issues have been purchased by investors, they change hands in the stock market. The primary middlemen in the stock market are brokers and dealers. The distinction between them is the broker acts as an agent, whereas the dealer acts as a principal in the transaction. So stock markets are said to reflect the health of the country's economy. On the other hand, major economic indicators determine stock market movements to a large extent. From a true analysis of the various economic indicators and its implications on the stock markets, it is known that stock market movements are largely influenced by broad money supply, inflation, credit deposit ratio, and fiscal deficit apart from political instability. Individuals and firms who wish to avoid or reduce risk can deal with others who are willing to accept the risk for a price. The common place where such transactions takes place is called the derivative market. So what is derivative market? It is refers to the financial market for financial instruments such as futures, contracts, or options that are based on the values of their underlying assets. Examples is future contracts, option contracts, and credit default swaps. Mga example sa the derivative market. So there are two broad segments of the stock markets. First is the organized stock markets. What is organized stock market? So it is a formal market. The word organized, so formal, organized man siya. So, tawag siya formal. It is a formal market in a specific place in which buyers and sellers meet to trade according to agreed rules and procedures. Examples ani are the stock exchanges, financial future exchange, o commodity market. So second is the over-the-counter or OTC exchange. Over-the-counter OTC exchange refers to the process of how securities are traded via broker-dealer network as opposed to on centralized exchange. Example ani are the mga shares and currency that being bought through a dealer. There are also reasons for transactions in stock markets. First is information motivated reasons, and second is liquidity motivated reasons. That's all. Thank you for listening, and the next reporter is Ivy Concepcion Duaman.
So, good morning, business. I'm Ivy Concepcion B. Duaman, the next reporter. So, my topic about this meaning of stock exchange. So, a stock exchange is an organized secondary market where securities like shares, debentures of public companies, government securities, and bonds issued by municipalities, corporations, utility undertakings, port trusts, and such other local entities are purchased and sold. In order to bring liquidity, the stocks are traded systematically in a stock exchange. The stock exchange is an entity, a corporation, or mutual organization which is in the business of bringing buyers and sellers of stock and securities together. So, stock exchange is but ang ubang corporate bonds can be traded on stock exchange. Stock exchange is tugutan ang kumpanya nga magpasaka sa ilang capital and investors to make the informed decision using the real-time price information. Umaw na ang stock exchange. The purpose of a stock exchange is to facilitate the exchange of securities between buyers and sellers, thus providing a marketplace, virtual or real. The stock market does not have a physical presence. It is a virtual market. Gone are the days when share brokers assembled in a place called the trading ring. So, trading ring is the method by which certain types of investment business are conducted. Kumauna ang trading ring. Technology has enabled the ring to be located in a central computer which has millions of buyers and sellers attached to it through a telecommunication network. These buyers and sellers indicate their intentions through a computer at home or the office, their own or their brokers. Buyers and sellers' order are matched by the central computers, and if quantities and prices correspond, then a trade is set to be executed. The entire process of sending the order to the stock exchange computer, confirmation of order and execution, if any, is communicated within a fraction of a second. The stock exchange supplies a platform from which to buy and sell shares in a certain listed companies. It regulates the company's behavior through requirements agreed upon by the company in order to be listed. This is called a listing agreement. So, from the word listing agreement is the basic document which is executed between companies and the stock exchange when companies are listed on the stock exchange. So, ang main purpose sa aning listing agreement kay isure jud nga ang kumpanya kay ning follow sa good corporate governance. So, for example, sa listing agreement is yuta, di ba? Kailangan jud nga kanang naay contract nga magpatuod nga imuhana. To shares that are traded in are received and delivered through an electronic entry in the books of buyers and sellers. The second reason is guarantee of trades. Sellers get their money, buyers get their shares. The stock market is known as barometer of the company's economy. The companies listed on stock exchange collectively contribute to the country's GDP or gross domestic product. Listing of securities in stock exchange. So, listing means admission of securities to dealing on a recognized stock exchange of any incorporated company, central and state government, quasi-governmental and other financial institutions or corporations, municipalities or electricity board, housing board, and so forth. The principal object of listing is to provide liquidity and marketability to listed securities and ensure effective monitoring of trading for the benefit of all participants in the market. A company desiring to get listing has to enter into listing agreement with the concerned stock exchange and is required to pay the specified listing fees. Thereafter, the company is required to comply with all clauses of the listing agreement and to send details of book closure, record dates, copies of annual report, quarterly and half-yearly report, and cash flow statement to the respective stock exchange where the securities are listed. Sumaw na ang listing agreement na adjud kanjud nga mao na imuhang kuanana nga naadyo'y kontrata nga mao na imuhang nakita na record dates o na copies of annual report. A recognized stock exchange means a stock exchange being recognized by the national government through the Securities and Exchange Commission. So from the word recognize, so giila ang stock exchange sa national government. That's all. Thank you. The next reporter will be Miraflor Bayante Tutor.
So good morning everyone. My name is Miraflor Tutor and here is the continuation of our report. And my topic is all about the continuation of listing of securities on stock exchange. So securities are bought and sold in recognized stock exchanges through members who are known brokers. The price at which the securities are bought and sold on a recognized stock exchange is known as official quotation. So the securities of an entity may be listed at any of the following stages. First, at the time of public issue of shares or debentures. Second is at the time of rights issue of shares or debentures, at the time of bonus issue of shares, and lastly is the shares issued on amalgamation or merger. So what is listing of securities? So I have searched a meaning about it, and listing means the admission of securities of a company to trading on a stock exchange. So it becomes necessary when a public limited company wants to issue shares or debentures to the public. So when securities are listed on a stock exchange, and the company has to comply with the requirements of the exchange. So in a stock exchange, a person who wishes to sell his security is called a seller, and a person who is willing to buy the particular stock is called a buyer. It's simply as it word itself. So the rate of stock depends on the simple law of demand and supply. Yes. So here are the partial list of publicly listed companies classified according to industries Philippine Stock Exchange. So we have here the banks, 4 banks, other financial institutions, electricity, energy, power and water, food, beverage and tobacco, construction, infrastructure and allied services. And we have here chemicals, electrical components and equipment, holding firms, property, media, telecommunication, information technology, transportation services, hotel and leisure, education, casinos and gaming, mining, and lastly is the oil. So the grand total of its volume is 1,744,110,100, and the grand total value is 7,995,106,631.95. And that is the Philippine Stock Exchange list. And that's all our report. Thank you and God bless.